What is up guys, Fahan here, and what can I say? This is the ultimate review of the Honda PCX 125.
Alright guys, so before I begin this review, a word of warning. I'm going to be bashing this bike a little bit, and I'm going to be comparing it to most of the other automatic scooters that I've written, such as the ADV 150, the NMAX, and the Aerox. As with these reviews, everything you hear is strictly my own personal opinion. Other people's opinions may differ, and if you don't like it, there's always Revzilla, there's always Fortnite, if you want to hear good words. Gonna begin this review. This is the PCX 125, older version I might say, and uses a key as opposed to a transponder, and there are actually keyless options for this bike. So putting the key in, turning the ignition, pulling the brake, and it starts. So yep, let's get this review started. So the Honda PCX, this bike, it's not available at Auto Exchange. I rented this out with my own money. It's not sponsored, and if you want to rent the PCX, you can search this bike up on Carousel, but I must warn you that it's really rarely seen being rented out lah. So this is the only one that I could find. This is the older model. I think this is like the 2013 model, and also this is the 125cc. And for Singapore, Honda Bunsio, they are officially bringing in the 150cc, and this 125cc is parallel imported lah. And being a rental bike, this bike is definitely a used and abused. I mean, the rental company actually told me that previous person who rented this bike actually self-skidded, and there's some damage as you can see. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but hopefully being a rental bike, you guys will understand that my experience and my riding may differ from other people, from other reviewers. You can always watch other reviews for a better opinion on the PCX lah. We're here in my hometown of Bishan, and there it is, the start-stop technology, or which is called idling stop in Honda's words. And you've stopped the bike, it automatically shuts off, and then when you throttle a bit, it starts again. Similar to the ADV 150 and the NMAX and the Aerox. Alright, very sluggish pickup there. I mean, it's a 125cc, you cannot expect much from it, but I would reckon that the 150cc would be better lah than this, because it shares the same engine as the ADV 150, and in fact the engine actually came from this bike, not from the ADV 150. The ADV 150 came out sometime later after the PCX. So the ADV 150 is actually the cousin of the PCX. Its chassis, its engine, its transmission is shared with the PCX but only the 150 variation, not the 125cc variation. Okay, so where was I? Oh yeah, the PCX, in terms of maneuverability, in terms of the handling, is very similar to the NMAX, I must say. It maneuvers and corners pretty well. The handling is pretty tip-top lah on the PCX. Very similar to the ADV 150 I'm at, but the ADV 150 has a slightly higher wheelbase. I think this is much more suited for like small roads or traffic, city riding, as with any other automatic scooter lah. Very slow pickup for the 125cc. Not sure about the 150cc though, but it should perform similar as with the ADV 150 that I've ridden before, which is average. Comparing this to Yamaha's automatic scooters, in terms of the speed, in terms of the performance, the pickup slightly slower than Yamaha's NMAX and Aerox. And this being 125cc, you cannot expect much. I'm sure the 150cc will be able to do slightly well. And not to forget, this is an old bike, so wear and tear over the years may have affected its handling and its performance lah. Riding this bike, you can't expect much. It's an automatic scooter, so it's meant to conquer the city streets lah. But I'm really surprised on why there's a 125cc here in Singapore. The reason why there's a 125cc in the first place is actually to serve the UK licensing standards lah, which is called the 2A. I'm not sure, 2A licensing, because 125cc is the cap I think you are able to ride this with a car license. Actually, I'm not sure about this. I just did some light research on this. It's meant to be a city commuter. It's meant for you to ride comfortably in low traffic. And speaking of comfortable, right, the seat height is actually 76.5. For me, I'm 165. I'm not tiptoeing at all. My feet is flat on the ground. Sitting position, I wouldn't say it's that comfortable, but okay lah. I would say it's okay. The NX is better, the Aerox is better, but this okay lah, manageable lah. And it's like you're sitting on a chair, but not that bad, not as worse as the Lambretta lah. I would say that the sitting position is somewhat similar like the Gilera. I mean, this bike, a small twist of the throttle is able to maintain speed very well. I mean, you're able to like cruise around. No wonder it's very popular with mostly dispatch riders or all those uncles. Oh my god, there's actually a fatal accident here. Oh dear. At this small estate right here. So anyway, but yeah, like I said, moving into this private estate right now, it handles really well. Handling, maneuverability is like, ooh, so comfortable, man. You see, I'm doing like this slalom thing right now, and I absolutely love it, you know. It's so nice. Okay, I don't know where to go. I think I'm lost, but I'm just gonna like, since I'm doing this review, I might as well just ride on, you know. So you can imagine if you're stuck in traffic like this, right? When you have this PCX with you riding, I mean, it makes life so much easier as opposed to having a clutch whatsoever. I think this goes the same with all of the Class 2B automatic scooters. Rider demographics on the PCX, in which most of the riders that ride the PCX are mostly all the veteran riders. You rarely see a young rider riding it, and even if it's a young rider, it's probably a GrabFood rider lah. But I can understand why the riders chose the PCX as opposed to the ADV 150 or even the Aerox and the NMAX, because this is like $4,000 lesser. I don't get why Honda is selling the PCX $4,000 less than the ADV 150 when both chassis and transmission and engine is the same, especially the 150cc version. You're basically buying the ADV 150 for the name and the different bodywork lah, and also higher suspension. I wish Honda didn't do this and just keep the prices for the ADV 150 and the PCX similar lah. Since 2009, ever since its release, you know, Honda has updated the PCX numerous times with different bodywork, different engines. This has also become their test bed for hybrid and electric versions of the PCX. So you can expect maybe like a hybrid or an electric PCX sometime in the future, and you feel confident taking in the corners, riding the PCX on like windy roads. But I wouldn't recommend you guys to actually corner barring because that's what actually happened to this bike lah. Because the rental company, the guy, he actually told me the guy was attempting to like lean into the corners and the bike actually give way lah. And unlike the Lambretta, the PCX doesn't struggle when you're going like uphill, or you know, you are going through a minor incline such as this Lorong Penchalak. Here's a minor incline right here. Look at this, it doesn't struggle at all. I think this has to do with this Honda's V-Matic transmission, which is kind of works like CVT, but it's Honda's own proprietary kind of transmission, automatic transmission for scooters. So according to Honda themselves, the fuel tank is 8 liters with a projected range of 47.6 km per liter. So total range, I'm not sure. I'm going to do my maths and put it down here for you guys. Personally, I think it's quite fuel efficient, not too bad. And even now, I had this bike for a few hours. I've been riding the whole time, and I've just lost like 2 bars. This is to cater to the needs of scooter riders lah, who want a convenient, versatile and fuel efficient motorcycle lah. And over the course of the production of the Honda PCX, there's been a few variations that Honda has came out since its production in 2009. There's like this 125cc version, the 150, which is the most common one here in Singapore and officially brought in by Honda Boon Siu. And recently in 2020 they released the PCX 160. So far that is an Indonesian exclusive, but I think in a few months or even next year the 160cc version is going to like be released over the world. The variations themselves even feature different bodywork, slightly different styling, in which the headlight has some kind of like design in them, representing like, I don't know, like some sort of angel wings in my personal opinion. Oh, there's a PCX right there. I think that's the later model and the 150cc version, because the tail lights is shared with the Honda Forza actually. This version, the tail light is exclusively for the PCX. Alright, we got heavy traffic right in front of us. And speaking of lane splitting, oh, I have to say that this bike is very slim enough to go in between cars and all that, but not as slim as the Kapchai lah. The Kapchai you're able to really like lane split in really tight spaces but this one, the PCX, you aren't able to like really take in those tiny spaces Hey, look at this, lane splitting very comfortably right now.
Honda developed the Honda PCX for the everyday commuter in mind. No frills, fuss-free, to simply get from point A to point B, nothing more. Reportedly, the acronym for the PCX, and these guys, I'm not joking with you, it actually means Personal Comfort Saloon, with the X-Loon pronounced as Saloon. The PCX was originally developed and launched in Taiwan, where scooters are common there. Production moved to Thailand, Vietnam, and finally Indonesia. As a worldwide scooter, the PCX has a few variations to cater the different licensing needs in certain countries, namely the 125cc, the 150cc, which is the most popular one and officially brought in by Honda Boon Siu in Singapore, and the latest one, the 160cc. All variations are liquid-cooled single-cylinder 4-stroke SOHC 2-valve with fuel injection and with what Honda calls a V-matic belt converter automatic transmission.
Alright guys, so as you guys can see, I'm comfortably sitting on the bike right now. 165, the seat height is 76.5, so I think suitable for short riders like myself. Pretty comfortable, pretty ergonomical, but as you're riding more and more, your back tends to hunch a bit, so from time to time you need to remember to straighten your back so that it doesn't hurt your back lah. On my test ride, as I mentioned, long periods of riding, your butt does tend to get a bit sore. I'm not sure if this is the aftermarket seat or the original seat, but it's kind of hard. So as with any other automatic scooter, you expect convenience, you expect versatility, and one of the versatile things about automatic scooters is that they feature under-seat storage, 30.4 liters, can fit one half-face helmet or even open face helmet comfortably inside, maybe a few other items. 30.4 liters guys, so slightly bigger than the NMAX, and I think it's almost the same as the ADV 150. So features a storage cubby right here. You can store like small items, your cell phone. I think later models there's this 12-volt power outlet where you can charge your phone on the go. But take note, however, for this storage cubby right here, cannot be locked, so make sure you take out all your valuables when you leave your bike parked lah. And also the gauge cluster is analog and has a tiny LCD screen for the odometer and also the trip meter. But later models, especially the 2020 and 2019 models, they've changed to an all LCD display. And nothing much on the handlebar controls here. Horn, left and right signal, high beam, low beam, and also most of the Honda scooters features the idling start-stop system, which means that if you're stopping at a traffic light, it will auto cut off the engine, and with a twist of the throttle, it will go again. And this model is the older version, comes with no ABS, uses a key as opposed to a transponder, so pretty straightforward. Just put it inside here, twist the ignition, pull in the brake, and then you can start the bike lah. What I love about the handlebar setup is that it's a naked handlebar. It's not like most automatic scooters, which is like there's a plastic cladding over here. So I think it makes it easier for you to change the handlebar to a higher or taller one or an aftermarket one. And yeah, this is also similar to the ADV 150. So price range for the PCX, mostly the 150 models, because in Singapore they mostly bring in the PCX 150. The 125, I rarely see listings for this on Carousel. In fact, there's no listings on Carousel right now. So look at Carousel price range, used 5k to 13k depending on the COE, of course. And new one, there's this listing 5,700 without any COE. This is probably the cheapest automatic scooter from a mainstream brand that you can find. But unfortunately, as in Singapore, you know lah, the COE prices will determine the actual price of a bike. From a cost perspective, the PCX is more value for money lah.
Design-wise, it's very curvy and sleek. A reminiscent of early 2000s era European scooters such as the Pagio X8 125 and the Honda S-Wing. Very unassuming and forgettable. And it's actually on purpose to deter the PCX from thieves.
Alright, let's bring this out onto the highway. So when I first saw the PCX on the road, I'm like, making fun of it lah, because of its forgettable design. I don't really take the PCX too seriously because this PCX is really, it really blends in the road very well. It's really forgettable. I mean, when you see the PCX, it's like, okay, it's just another automatic scooter on the road. It doesn't stand out. It's forgettable. But now that I've ridden it, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Doing my research on this bike, the Indonesians, where it's currently being manufactured, right, will hold the PCX in high regard, and they are really proud of this product because this is a worldwide bike. It's sold everywhere, even in the US. It's very popular in Europe also, and of course in Southeast Asia this is a staple, in Philippines especially. The Indonesians are really proud that this bike, is being sold all over the world, and there's a huge cult following and culture for the PCX, and they really modify this bike until like there is no I think you cannot even recognize that it's a PCX anymore. There's even one modification that I searched on the internet, is like, wow, there's even like side panniers that match with the bodywork of the bike, similar to Shivam's Hayabusa, and it looks really sick, guys. At first I'm actually laughing at the PCX, but now I come to realize and respect the status of the PCX that it played in the motorbike scene. Because to be frank, it's a simple point A to point B bike that Honda marketed to be cheap and accessible to everybody, and these riders in turn reward the PCX with modifying it, glorifying it, and building a culture on a forgettable scooter that you probably won't even look twice on the highway. So this is what the PCX has contributed to the motorbike scene. And granted that in Singapore it is forgettable. I mean, if you want to see this bike on the road, it's like, okay, it's just another automatic scooter. But in Indonesia, where it is manufactured, this bike has a certain status to it, and I have to respect that. Performance in the highway, it's like, okay, pretty decent. 125cc, guys, what can you expect? But I have to say that it maintains speed very well, and definitely you won't get caught speeding on the PCX, because LTA probably wouldn't even care about this bike, Performs very decent, and I love the buttons on this bike, pretty responsive switches, that you see, high beam, low beam, idling, idle stop, pretty responsive and pretty clicky. That's what I mean, not responsive, pretty clicky. Oh my god, everybody is like overtaking me. I think I should move to the left. I'm really riding an underpowered scooter here, guys. Personally, I wouldn't want the 125cc version. I would rather get the 150 one. In terms of speed, in terms of torque, it probably performs better. I would expect it to be performing similarly to the ADV 150 lah, in which it actually shares the same engine. Suspension for the PCX is like meh, average. It doesn't really absorb all of the road cracks and imperfections really well. But the road markings right here, as you can see, I don't really feel the road markings on the road. So yeah, recently, like 2020, last year, they released the 160cc version, in which I must add, there's some slight cosmetic differences between the previous generations, and they have given it a modern feature with ABS, all digital gauge cluster right here, and slightly better internals that improve the performance of the PCX. So I think the PCX is something to be reckoned with lah, and to be brought into the spotlight lah, which it really deserves, you know. And I think that is where the charm of the PCX lies, you know. I mean, it doesn't gain any attention. That is the thing. Unlike the Aerox, the NMAX, and even the ADV 150, the PCX name and the platform is something fresh that Honda can, you know, work upon, and really protects it from the harsh criticism, you know, that bike reviewers frequently give. Not me lah. I mean, at first I may be bashing this bike, but slowly I've come to love it, you know, for its quirks. And honestly guys, right now, after riding for a few hours, my butt is currently sore right now. Yeah, so it's not really that comfortable of a ride lah, this PCX. Maybe you can change the seat, and there's lots of aftermarket accessories available for the PCX, given that the Indonesians really mod this bike till like wow. You cannot even recognize it, man. And I have to applaud their efforts for bringing in a lot of aftermarket accessories for the PCX. You can really do anything and everything you want to it. Very sluggish acceleration on the highway. If you're on the highway right now and you're riding a PCX 125, yeah, just keep left. You can even forget about going to lane 1, seriously. And it doesn't cut through the wind very well, given that the windshield is quite low. But I think there's a higher windshield, aftermarket higher windshield. It may look aerodynamic, but it's not aerodynamic at all. I think you must really go down. Much better.
Unlike the likes of the CBR and Goldwing, there is no heritage and history tagged to the PCX platform, removing the burden of harsh criticism from bikers and bike reviewers. It simply exists, just there, blended in traffic. And that's the charm of the PCX. There is no prestige in riding the Honda PCX. Despite this, sales of the PCX have been strong, with over 140,000 sold in Europe. And surprisingly, in Indonesia, where the PCX is currently manufactured, there's a huge cult following there. The Indonesians are a patriotic bunch, knowing that this homegrown machine proudly carried the Made in Indonesia label on this unassuming worldwide scooter.